I'm here today with some fantastic news for all believers worldwide and especially in the USA where they really need some good news. I came across this news by studying the book of Revelation in the 18th chapter. Came across an old familiar verse in the first part of that chapter which says, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins." And I read this and I thought, thinking that the book of Revelation was written in chronological order, which it appears to be in many cases, this one didn't seem to fit because this was so far back into the book of Revelation, way beyond the tribulation, judgments, the bowls and the vials and all that, that it just didn't seem to make any sense here. So why would it say, "Come out, my people, that ye be not partakers of their sins," when obviously the church has already been taken out of the world and was back in by the 6th chapter of Revelation. Before that, that was the time of the rapture. The church was taken to the marriage supper of the Lamb. So what does this mean here where it says, "Come out, my people, be not partakers of their sins"? They won't be partakers of their sins if they've been taken in the rapture, of course. And you might be able to interpret this in another way, which is to say that perhaps God was talking to the remnant of Israel, that you become not partakers of their sins. But this is during the reign of Antichrist, so what would it mean for them not to be partakers of the sins? They've already seen another Holocaust at this time by all measures from the study of prophecy. So that wouldn't make any sense either. So I was looking at this and wondering if this could possibly be a reference to America, since America has fallen so greatly in the past months, weeks, days, recently, minutes ago. The downfall is just so sudden and abrupt and so cataclysmic that we need to look at the fall of America as it affects the entire world. And now it's a general consensus among many biblical scholars that specialize in prophecy, that America is not mentioned. Some of you say that America is never mentioned in Scripture. And I tended to go along with that for a long time, except for maybe one verse that talks in Ezekiel 38:3, which talks about what is called the young lions of Tarshish. And the context in which this was spoken, the young lions of Tarshish were made to be associated with the British Empire, whose symbol is a lion. And the young lions were supposed to be the offspring of the British Empire, which I guess would be, of course, Canada, America, maybe Australia. And this was how that was taken. And that came about because Tarshish was a city, an old city that I don't believe it goes by that name anymore, on either the coast of Spain or the North Africa. And this is supposedly the place where Solomon got all his metal for the temple, for Solomon's temple. And he imported it from there and built the temple. And I guess during the time when the British had control over Palestine, or Israel, but what name is Palestine, they apparently took a lot of that metal back to Britain, because Britain was supposed to be this great, mighty bastion of Zionism, or biblical Israel and its preservation. Of course, the Crusades came from England, Richard the Lionheart, we all know about that. So this is what made you think that maybe they were the young lions of Tarshish. But anyway, even in this case, we all know that Britain today is no model of Christianity. And certainly America, one of the young lions of Tarshish, is as far from Christendom as anything you can imagine. We have fallen to the point of absolute chaos, Baal worship, and demons controlling every aspect of government and life in this country. So that didn't really make sense. That didn't really make sense. So I began to think more that perhaps America really was in this verse, and not only that, it might have been all through the 18th book of Revelation. Now, where scholars get mixed up is they think that, well, last day Babylon is some kind of a mysterious world system of government AI type of technology and tracking, and you see that everywhere. It's like it's somewhere in the European Union and maybe centered in Brussels, because in Brussels they have this giant computer system which supposedly has a capability, and maybe does, to track every human being on Earth. And they talk about, well, they nickname it the Beast, by the way, of course, an apt name for it. And so they think it might be centered there. And that may be, this great mythical Babylon, which is spiritual Babylon, which is going to come to take place. Now, in scriptures, it says that Babylon will never be rebuilt, even though Saddam Hussein imagined he was going to build Babylon as it was in the days of King Nebuchadnezzar. And of course, it never was. It was never to be rebuilt. But symbolic Babylon, this Babylon of the last days, whatever you may call it, it's a gigantic economic system, a world system of government, which will no doubt be taken over by Antichrist, and have things like CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, which will lock everybody into the Antichrist system. So that is true. All these nations that are having Russia, China, Iran, all these countries that are performing all this mischief on the world scene today are most likely to be part of that which is called modern day Babylon. But the fact that it did not seem to fit at all in the chronological order of things in the book of Revelation was troubling, and it led me to investigate this more and see that other scholars have said that Revelation indeed does not appear to be chronological at all times at all. Now, for the first 6 chapters, it's Jesus giving the message to St. John on Patmos about all the churches that he is evaluating, and from the time of all the regions of Asia Minor, there, Turkey, Ephesus, Galatia, Thessalonica, Corinth, all these places. And he's giving judgments on all of them. And it takes us right up to today with the Church of Laodicea. Actually, the whole list of churches is a list of types of churches, chronologically indeed, that have gone right up into our time, to the time of Laodicea. And I spoke many times before about the church before this church, which was the Church of Philadelphia, and it was one of the most praised churches of Jesus in that time. And so we look at all this, and we say, yes, those chapters seem to be completely chronological. And then there's also the last chapters, 19, 20, 21, and 22, also seem to be chronological, focused definitely on Armageddon and the new reign of Christ and judgment on all the enemies of Israel. That seems to be chronological. From 6 to up until about 16, it seems to be a little bit mixed. But it's what I mean. You've got bowls of judgment, you've got vials of judgment, you've got one set of judgments after another, and sometimes it seems like the second appearing of Christ happens over and over and over again. So that's a little bit of a concern of mine. Why there might not be total chronology in the book of Revelation. I thought about one possible explanation for that. Is that John is on the island of Patmos. He's getting this vision coming at him in all very suddenly and very intensely, and he's might be trying to write it all down and write it, as the way we do if you've ever been, sort of under a wave of inspiration where thoughts are coming faster than you can keep up with them. you might be tempted to look at it and say, that's what he was doing. He was just writing down as fast as he could. Maybe he repeated himself. I don't know. But anyway, I see it. Another possibility is that it's like a sort of a summary of where things go right before he finishes writing the book. He talks about religious Babylon, the harlot in the 17th chapter of Revelation, and how she is judged. And he's warning everybody there about following the false church, the religious Babylon, the apostate church, and all the dangers of that. And then it just kind of naturally transitions into this fall of this other entity, this modern day Babylon. But the reason I like to think of this as America, because if you read the book of Revelation, the 18th chapter, start to finish, it just has so many verses that are actually like came over the news broadcast yesterday for this country. And considering the state we are in, we are now at this time in history saying, we're being told by the Holy Spirit, by God himself, come out of her, my people, and be not partakers of all her sins, because we are engulfed by such a wave of demonic activity that we now feel very, very much threatened in the U.S. And the world is unfortunately connected with the U.S. in so many ways. And this is also definitely spoken of in the 18th chapter of Revelation. We just have to conclude that this entity that is singled out for special judgment really has to be the USA. I mean, I thought there was a little bit of a hint here and there, but now in this time, the desperate time we are in the USA, we have to look at it in the totality of all the verses and how they sequentially go from one thing to another. Now, I've got a few. I got a board of all the verses. I'll talk about them one by one. All the ones that are especially pertinent to the U.S. or what seem to be very reflective of events in the U.S. Now, so 18th chapter of Revelation, beginning with verse 2, it says, Babylon the Great has fallen and become a place for every unclean spirit and hateful bird. Now that's an interesting term. Every unclean spirit, a hateful bird. Now what is the symbolism of birds in the Bible? Well, there are eagles that soar high above the clouds. The U.S. began with that as its national emblem. They symbolize triumph over adversity and coming back from the dead in a way. And so that's an eagle. And then there's also, of course, the dove, and the dove that descended on Jesus at his baptism, and also the dove representing the Holy Spirit and its actions in our lives. And then there are, of course, the something more closer to our hateful bird might be but not really, is the vultures and how they will feed sweetly on humanity after God's judgment at Revelation on the flesh of all humans. So there's many roles for birds. Of course, there's the sparrow that God keeps his eye on at all times, and many roles for birds. But here we have for every unclean spirit. America seems to be the leader in every vile abomination and unrealized abominations that have not been seen since maybe the time of Sodom and Gomorrah. In fact, many people have even said that they think America is worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. There's more reason to believe that its judgment will be greater than even Sodom and Gomorrah. And there would be no doubt, because the evils that are manifesting now with this sexualizing of children and the incredible forms of murder and wickedness that we never knew before, more gross, more horrible, matricide, fratricide, killing your brother and sister, babies, everything. All this going on now, it's every unclean spirit known to Satan, we should say. They've committed immorality. Okay. Has become and all the kings of the earth have committed immorality with her. So all the nations of the earth have been condemned for committing immorality with her merchants and becoming rich from the power of her luxurious living. So all the creature comforts and all the gadgets and conveniences of modern life, many of which are not necessary, have been adopted by the world. And the American brand has gone forth everywhere. It began with the industrial age, went on to the automobile, the radio, television, records, recordings, and technology, all spread through the rest of the world. So anyway, and it's all designed to encourage a luxurious living. Then verse 4, then heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, this is the one, my people, lest ye partake of her sins, and in her plagues. So you're warned to avoid the plagues of this modern day apocalyptic Babylon in that verse, and that's one part that is not so remembered because, well, first, how could it be remembered by scholars and people, Christians in this world that don't even know that they're Babylon? I mean, they love America so much, all this chest pounding and patriotic fervor that goes on and on forever and never dies. The country's getting more miserable from minute to minute, and yet still it's always the pounding of the chest. Greatest country on earth, greatest country on earth, like a mantra over and over again. Everybody wants to come here. Yeah, people are going to be rethinking that, I guarantee you. Her sins have heaped high unto heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. That's in verse 5. He will pay her back double, is what he says next. All her iniquities have been remembered. Everything that this country has allowed and permitted, and including not just the wicked sins of the liberals and the depraved in the population, but also in the neutrality and the turning a deaf ear or blind eye to the wickedness and being silent. Being silent as a Christian is being ashamed of Jesus Christ. So that's why they are lumped into this whole thing. And now, this God says, God has remembered her iniquities. Pay her back double, is what he says. As she has glorified herself with her, likewise, give her an equal measure of torment and mourning. Here it is. Finally, God addresses this incessant patriotism, and he says, as they have glorified her, as she has glorified herself, give her the same measure of torment and mourning. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing people being slaughtered. We're seeing people their homes broken into and murdered on a regular basis. We've seen a madman let loose the southern border so that every criminal, every terrorist, every monster can come into the country, and there is no protection. Everybody has to be their own policeman. And this is the predicament that no one should be under unless they are under a double judgment of God, a wrath, a virtual pouring out of a unique and pinpointed wrath against one people. And this, since America has always been like I say, the brand that the world accepts and follows, and the American stock market and the American financial markets control all the other actions in the world and that sort of thing. This is why the rest of the world has to be careful and move away from her, because it says it's got its day coming, and it'll be in 1 hour. Now, whether that's 1 hour or 1 day, I'm not sure, but it'll be a very short time when it all comes crumbling down. And we know that. I mean, it can play all the little wizardry and sorcery in the financial market with gaming the system, undervaluing or overvaluing currencies, and having everybody think that there's a soft landing coming, all this sort of thing. It's all just smoke and mirrors. We can't put any trust in it, and we have to prepare for what we know to be true, not for things as they seem to be, and the way people would like to imagine that as the beacon of hope for the whole world, that it's still going to be here for them. People honestly do believe that America will be here forever. We look at the fall of civilizations, and let's see, Greece, I guess, lasted till about 1,300 years. Rome lasted about 1,000 years. And we're away roughly 250 years, and we have just been drunken on love of money, love of materialism, love of self. In very short order, the great experiment in democracy that is America began to show real cracks in its foundation. And we should just recognize that. We should just know that we are Christians. It's not country and God. It's always been God and country. And God is the only one that will save us, but it won't save the nation of America, because I'm sure that America at its point now would never find its way back to God. It has lost so many core foundational truths that it could never find its way back to God any more than a blind man plopped down in the middle of the Amazon rainforest without a compass or GPS and Braille to read them could find his way to Bogota, Colombia. I mean, it's just, we are so completely, just taken away from our moorings and have no reference point, no compass whatsoever to know our way back to God. Only the remnant will do that. Now, what about the remnant? But what about the remnant that are in the U.S.? What about them? It's the most scary time in the world for them. What are they to do? I have thought about this many times, and all that I can say is leave the country. Leave the country. It is time to do that. Now, people say, well, I can't just pack up and go, and I don't have any money. The economy is so bad I don't have any money. Find a way. Find a way. Because you don't have to necessarily pack up and get citizenship in another country, but you can travel to other countries and spend time on a tourist visa. I mean, there are ways out of the country, and because there have to be ways out of the country, pray for it, pray on it, and let the Holy Spirit guide you. And come to sites like this. There's also another one that is not actually a Christian site, but very good, called Nomad Capitalist, and the man who does that talks about helping six-figure entrepreneurs get out of the USA, but it's very clear that he also encourages people just to go for a better life, and you don't even have to be a millionaire or anything. It's just find a way out because it's necessary, because it's a deathly evil system. Okay, so we talked about paying her back double. That's what God has in store for America. She has glorified herself. Give her more torment and mourning. In her heart she said, I sit a queen and no widow, and mourning I will never see. For this reason plagues come in a single day, death, mourning, famine, and burned up with fire. Death, mourning, famine, and burned up with fire. Yes, I'm quite certain that there will be a food shortage, a major famine in the USA. People that are stocking dry goods, I think, are probably very wise. It's not nearly too soon to get started on that, because we're open to anything, any kind of pestilence, any kind of disaster, terrorism, fire, mourning, death. We are the land of death and hell unleashed. That's just the way it is. Like I said before, no way back to God in this country. They have no idea what or who God is. Only the righteous do. Only those who are sealed by God onto the day of judgment and the rapture. So then here's another dead giveaway about America's economic collapse. And this is, I guess it's the 19th verse. It says, "All merchants, all merchants weep and mourn, for no one buys their cargo anymore." Now, does this mean that no one buys goods that are shipped overseas to other countries, or does it mean that America can't afford to buy any goods that come from China or other countries? Could be either one, apparently. But anyway, the merchants, those who supply products, and at this point of this chapter, it all talks about merchants in perfumes and beautiful clothing and gilded furniture, all kinds of luxury items. No one buys these luxury items anymore because Babylon has been thrown down, thrown into the sea. It says, Babylon thrown into the sea. The sound of the harpist and the musicians is gone. So maybe contemporary music has stopped. Maybe just the infrastructure has been so stricken and incapacitated that there's nowhere that in other words, the party has ended. There's no more recreation. There's no more TV watching. There's no more game shows. There's no more Dancing with the Stars. There's none of that stuff anymore because people are so terrified of what's happening in the world, and they are gone into a survival mode. And the infrastructure, the electrical grid, the water might have been poisoned. Any number of things. Anyway, because God says there is death, mourning, famine, and burning up. Everything burned up with fire. This is the fate of America. This is what happens when a country with an enormous great promise turns its back on God. God turns the whole nation into hell. And there's where we are, on the very precipice of that. But, like I say, make plans. Make very important plans to disassociate yourself and unencumber yourself with not only the cares of this world that bog you down, but the things and the attachments you have that no longer serve you in any way. Escape. Because Christian persecution is coming. There's no question about that. He says, "I will avenge the blood of my servants that they've experienced." The voice of the bridegroom. And then it says, and here's direct indication at the end of the chapter of the 18th, it says, "The voice of the bridegroom and the bride are heard no more." So this is a clear indication that somewhere in all this time the rapture takes place. The great hope of all humanity, the great hope of the church, the salvation, the protection and the deliverance of God's people in the great catching up will be sometime in this time. But in the meantime, if you have good survival skills, if you know what to do, if you have made preparations, if you are building your own ark of safety for this horrible, horrible time in this country especially, and for those in other countries, if you disassociate yourself, remember, separate yourself from the U.S. and her ways. Don't adopt her customs, her wicked, evil customs, the transgender movement, all the financial chicanery that's going on. Don't put any trust in it at all. It's all going to be destroyed. Everybody's going to be standing on the shore saying, "Oh, the great Babylon, the great America was so great, and in 1 hour, it's come to nothing. What do we do now?" It's there's plenty of other places. There's plenty of places where they have sound baking systems, where they make sound choices, where there's not this descent into madness that we see so much in this landscape of desolation and misery. So that's the crux of it. America is worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. It's the final judgment. It's the time of, it's preparing for the final judgment, and it's preparing for the rapture. Your great hope is the rapture. And take it as America's downfall written to a T. I mean, it's amazing to think that John on the island of Patmos could have gotten this revelation coming so suddenly, to see this world power and its fall, and how it will devolve, dissipate into madness. And he had to write it all down. In the meantime, the arrogant and the blinded of even biblical scholars still say that it's, well, what is this Babylon? It's a mystery. Maybe it's Brussels. Maybe it's AI. Maybe it's the Antichrist system already taking place. No, it's quite clear. This is the USA. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you get a lot out of it. And remember, this is your life, and this is your time to make all the preparations you need to do. Please stay in touch with us. I'm Pastor Allen, Veritas Triumphant Church, and we will continue to make more videos on survival and escape, and pay very close attention to them. We are on our website at veritastriumphant.com, and we are also at Gordon on the Facebook. It's Gordon Allen, Pastor Allen at Facebook, and then there's also Veritas Triumphant Church is the YouTube channel. And please, if you've enjoyed this, if you've benefited from this anyway, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel. And until then, continue to keep the faith. Stay active. Sometimes I think that we as Christians, we need to be like sharks in the water. They say that a shark, if he doesn't keep moving, he'll die. Gotta have the water going over the gills to keep alive, and that's sort of the way we are. We have to keep moving until the end, so that we may be faithful in every way until the end. God bless you. Until next time, this is Pastor Allen.